So, as you mentioned earlier, compared to desktop and web and mobile UX, the variability in all these platforms and all the input types and devices makes standardization really, really challenging. So you have to kind of adapt your user experience to the specific platform and persona that you're targeting. So, it can be very nerve-wracking, but there's a lot of people are basically figuring this stuff out. It's still a new medium. There's no kind of clear market standards yet. But this places a lot of emphasis on simplicity and prototyping. So, what are the tools that you can use to create virtual reality user experiences? So, basically, coming from the game development industry, the two main tools that are getting the most traction are Unity and Unreal. So, there is a lot of activity with 360-degree video also in VR, and I don't have as much first-hand experience with that, but if that is an area of VR that you're a part of the market that you're interested in, there are probably other tools that are better suited for doing that, for kind of making passive experiences. But for the purposes of this talk, we're going to be talking mainly about interactive experiences. So for Unity, we're going to go a little bit pros and cons of each. Unity was geared for mobile independent development, has a very, very accessible, flexible tool set. There's a great community out there for Unity that if you've got a question, I'm using Unity every day, and you just say, how do I do this? And you're going to be bound to find answers out there. Very, very broad platform support. They've got an asset store. If you're trying to figure out how to do something, chances are somebody else has already done it, and you pay a small amount of money to go download it and install a package. But the thing to be aware of is that especially on mobile VR, performance constraints are very, very strict. It is almost like you're making games for a PlayStation 1 or a Sega Dreamcast. You're talking about hardware that is 15 years old now, because they have to render the scene twice, with lenses, and they have to render at a very high frame rate. So, and you're talking just on phone, the performance constraints are still very strict. So, and one of the things you should be aware of when using Unity is Unity's flexibility can also be a little bit of a disadvantage here, because it can allow you to kind of be sloppy in terms of creating the way you script things, the way you implement things, and might consume memory very quickly. So you have to keep an eye on your performance and your frame rate. Standard best practice is 60 frames per second. And once you start getting below that, motion sickness becomes a concern. So just be aware of that if you're starting to work with Unity. Unreal is more designed for photorealistic gaming, high-end first-person games for PC and console. It is a more mature engine architecture. Unreal has been around since the 90s. And it has a little bit more of a steeper learning curve. It doesn't have, within a certain segment, like kind of the hardcore gamer segment, or people working in professional game development for retail games, there's a lot of experience and wide familiarity with Unreal. But it does have a steeper learning curve. And in some ways, they are catching up to Unity. It does also support mobile, but because it is this sort of very powerful, muscular engine, that it has a very large memory footprint. So if you're planning on them accessing an app over the air, that may be very prohibitive for downloading, because it's going to be very large. It's better for them to download. If you have an Unreal VR app on mobile, better to download it when they have Wi-Fi access. So, can you use your existing UX tools and processes? So certainly journey maps, flows, personas, all of these things are still, and even wireframes, even two-dimensional wireframes do have a place for VR UX design. But I do feel that existing tools, being two-dimensional, do tend to lend themselves to flat or rectangular experiences. And this is not inherently bad, right? We have 20 years, more than 20 years, 30 years of conventions that we've built up about how to design rectangular, flat experiences. So it is kind of a safe, comfortable, set of conventions for us to operate within. But what I feel is that it doesn't leverage VR's true strengths, which are what they call dimensionality and presence. The sense that what you're seeing in front of you is actually there. It's real, that you want to reach out and touch it. So if you have kind of this thing that just looks like a big, flat screen, or a big movie screen, I think there's a missed opportunity there. And I think as VR starts to get more and more adoption, start to figure out more of these UX conventions, you're going to start to see people move away from rectangular, flat. And you're going to start to see people embracing truly dimensional experiences.